Hi, welcome to K Martin X Makes, my new channel on exploring projects in a workshop. Today I'm going to be starting sort of what I hope to be a regular weekly update of sorts. At some point maybe this will be a live stream. I will need to get some new equipment for that to happen. But for right now I figured I'd just do kind of a rambling talk at you sort of update. And then I'm hoping to still get Friday project updates, project videos out. That's my goal anyway. So what are we doing here? Well, since this is the first one of these, and also this channel's fairly new, I thought I'd give anyone watching this an idea of what I'm in the middle of, what I got going on, and what I'm hoping to get done in the next few months, what's holding me up, that sort of stuff. So let's get started. As I record this, it's the tail end of October, and right now what I'm working on the biggest is getting workshop organization done. After I spent all summer getting the power redone out here, I started to realize that stuff was kind of scattered all over the place, and it's kind of hard to tell. This workshop is a 2-car garage that is half used as a bike storage slash family activity storage. And we also have a separate outbuilding for gardening tools and that sort of thing. And I'm hoping that maybe someday we'll build a different building for bike storage to give this space a little more openness. And I can sort of float a little bit better. As of now, I'm trying to mostly stick to the half that's behind the camera right now as the main working area. And then there's this workbench which came with the house when we bought it, and some stuff stored behind me. But the biggest thing that I'm going to be focusing on working on over the next weeks and months is building the tools and storage units necessary to sort of organize all this stuff, which is not super exciting, but I also have a few other things that I'm going to hopefully be interspersing in there that may be a little more interesting to talk about. So first of all, I have made an attempt, and this is the video that's going to come out Friday, to sort of build this tool holder here. And it's designed to hold various tools, and it'll hang on the wall. And use a French cleat system, hopefully get set up on the wall, that'll allow for a modular tool storage sort of organization. And give sort of a destination for where a lot of stuff can go. The idea being that the battery charger, batteries, tools, all sorts of stuff can go up there, and then I can add on additional things to the French cleat wall that will allow things like circular saws or sanders, or maybe a spindle to put the paper towels, that sort of thing. And after that, I want to do an update on the router table that I can't show you because it's kind of buried under some stuff, and I don't want to move my fine-tuned camera setup at the moment. But I started building a router table before my kid was born, and he's almost 4 now, and it has taken me this long to finish it. I am at the final stages, just a few more steps to have it finished. I'm hoping to do a couple videos on it's been like building it so far and what I have left to do, and then there's a couple huge hurdles that need to be jumped over, achieved, accomplished, and once that's done, it'll make a great addition to the workflow of the shop. Also, if you follow me on Blue Sky at kmartinxmakes, you will see I just got a joiner at it was off Facebook Marketplace, and it's a benchtop one that sort of came with it's an old Craftsman model that the motor is mounted in a cabinet, like a homemade cabinet underneath it. Maybe I'll do a little video about that, but that needs to try to find an actual home. And then I have a whole bunch of lumber, which you can see a little bit here behind me, that I need to build a lumber storage solution to sort of track all the floating pieces of spare lumber, plywood and hardwood and offcuts and all that sort of stuff. That is going to be probably the next thing that I start trying to design and tackle. I don't know where the best place to put it is. The other thing about this workshop is one corner of the area has built-in countertop and cabinetry, which you'd think would be great for this sort of situation, but it really limits the sort of things that need to be pressed up against a wall when they're not in use, because it removes all the wall space and actually just creates a surface that stuff gets set on and gets messy. So I'm hopeful that I can keep a workspace for working on stuff and then go from there, and the rest of the stuff is just storage, whether that's like a project that's in progress storage or something that's being glued up storage, and not just open surface for stuff to set on. After that, something that I have never done, I was gifted a whole bunch of planes, and they all need to be sharpened and cleaned up. And I have never really done any sort of sharpening in my workshop experience. And I have chisels that have languished in drawers and gotten misused and really need new bevels ground into them and then resharpened. I have yard tools that have been left outside and need a new edge resharpened on them. So I think I'm going to spend some time figuring out what I need to do to get some sharpening stones, maybe an edge guide or a bevel guide that I can use for sharpening the chisels with, or these plane irons. And there's going to be a lot of lessons learned there, but I feel like figuring all that out is going to take some time. Figuring out what I need to buy is going to take some time. I would also love to, while I'm doing that, look at if my saw blades need to be regularly sharpened, and if it's worth sharpening them versus just keeping extras around. One challenge that I have is the table saw that I'm working with was a gift, and it was free. Well, that's one of the great examples why this is difficult to make into a live stream, is because you never know when family's gonna call. So where were we? Let's see. Going over the next few weeks and months of projects, I am hoping to do a bunch of organization stuff. Maybe a couple tours in here. Maybe ripping out some of the space and adding in better workable space. I am trying not to dump a bunch of money into new projects because there are a handful of things that I would love to sort of be able to get in the next few months. The main thing being is a table saw. This is where I was going earlier. The table saw I have is was a free gift from a family member, and it spins, it cuts. The fence is a little warped, and the surface is not cast iron and catches easily, even though I have used some aluminum polish. And the T-tracks are not smooth and will catch regularly if you try to slide something through them. So, all that said, it's what I got, and I am aware of the classic idiom: a poor worksman blames his tools, but it is a frustrating challenge to deal with. And I would love a slightly larger contractor style saw. Most creators you see on YouTube have a saw stop. That would be ideal. Those are a little expensive to just go purchase right now. But I'm hopeful that in the next 6 months, I'll be able to sort of make that work. So once that is sort of figured out, I feel like that'll give me a lot more financial freedom to dive into a few bigger furniture projects. Some furniture projects that I'm considering, I want to make a hat rack. You'll note from watching videos, I have a lot of hats and jackets. And the hat rack in my house right now is broken and basically only stands because it's leaning in a corner. And I want to make a new one. And originally I had planned on making one that had a round spindle for the middle, but that would require a large lathe. And I've since found a shaker style plan for one that uses a square spindle, and that seems much more achievable. Has beautiful legs, and I think that can be knocked out pretty easily. Another plan that I'm wanting to make is a craftsman style chest, like a blanket chest, and the plan that I'm putting together would require some larger resawn lumber. I don't have a bandsaw. You might hear me talk about using our local tool library. Portland has a tool library program based on the neighborhood you live in, and it is a free nonprofit organization that may exist in your town. I would suggest you Google it, but you can look them up, and they have many such tools. Woodworking tools, automotive tools, carpet removal, drywall install, lawn tools, lawn mowers, all that sort of stuff. Different regulations apply to different spaces. The one that I'm part of for my particular neighborhood, it operates out of a basement, and so they don't take any gasoline powered tools because of the fumes being in an enclosed space and working on them all the time. But other than that, they have a wide variety of things, including bandsaws, but they don't have a bandsaw large enough to do any resawing, which is fine because how easy would it be to lug a giant bandsaw like that? That's not like a mobile, donatable, borrowable tool. But they do have bandsaws for smaller projects. But if I want to do any resawing, I would set up a resawing jig on a table saw. And there are several jigs for table saws that I'm wanting to put together, but I don't want to try to build one to operate on a non-ideal table saw because I don't want to build it to try to deal with maybe a fence that's crooked or a surface that's not level, that sort of stuff. So I'm sort of holding off on building any table saw jigs until I figure out my new table saw situation. The tool library does have several table saws to borrow. They're the DeWalt job site table saw. which I have used in the past before I got this one, and it is a fine tool. I like it better than this one actually because this current table saw that I have can't take a full 3/4 inch dado stack. So when I cut some dados in this to fit these 3/4 inch pieces of plywood, I had to do it in multiple passes, which was not ideal. But I made it work. But the DeWalt job site saw I'm able to fit a full 3/4 dado stack into. So if I just decide to dump this thing in the meantime, I'll have that as an option. I'll just have to plan my table saw use more around when that is available and when I can go, when they're open and I can get it and how long I can keep it for and so on and so on. But this Craftsman chest that I was talking about requires some large panels, and I think that'd be super fun to play around with. One of the lessons learned from building this router table, which we'll definitely talk more on when I start doing the router table series that you'll see the videos on, is the length of time it took me to make this meant that I acquired the parts at different times, and so I would get some pieces, cut some parts of joinery, wait 6 months, a year, longer, buy another piece, realize that the joinery had shifted, the corners that weren't finished had moved, nothing quite fit right anymore, and the downside of that was any problems that I had just compounded over time. I think because of that, the main takeaway I had was make sure to get all of the input materials, as much of the input materials as possible before starting anything. And that allows the lumber to acclimatize to your space. That allows you to make sure that you cut accurate joinery because you have both pieces. Oftentimes I would cut maybe a dado or a groove for a piece that would fit into it without the piece to fit into it. And then by the time I got the piece that fit into it, it was a different size, because if you've worked with wood before, you know that there are no non-standard. Wood is a non-standard object. It's a natural object, comes in different sizes, and you might get a certain size, and I didn't have a surface planer for most of that, thickness planer. And so a big lesson for me that I learned was, rather than buy bits and try to work on it in piecemeal, wait until you can acquire everything at once. And that way you're always working off of a known item. So the Craftsman chest and the coat rack are two furniture projects that I'm hoping to start soon in the next weeks and months. I mentioned lathing. I would love to get into wood turning or turning in general. I have some ideas on how to try to get into using a wood turning lathe. I'll have to see sort of what my options are there on how to get and use one, and get some hands-on time, start learning it. I don't know how well it'll translate into a video, but that'll at least give me an idea of where I want to go. I definitely would love to get a lathe. I don't know where it would go in here. I think I need to make a SketchUp plan of this whole space and sort of see what can fit where and what can be packed up and mobilized and that sort of thing. But then also I'm planning on taking a trip to my dad's workshop. And his workshop, he has a large metal engineering fabrication workshop that he works out of. And he has a metal lathe and a end mill and like a CNC plasma table, and that sort of stuff. And so I'm hoping to sort of line up some projects and maybe we can work through some stuff there. I think it'd be fun. Years ago, I used his plasma table and built this. I don't know how well this will show up. The main engineering sign from Star Trek. That's sort of the name I call this workshop, main engineering. So I'm hoping to come up with some new things to build while I'm there in a few months. This was basically the most time was spent figuring out the design in CAD, and then after that you just upload it to the CNC machine and whoop, off it goes. Yeah, so those are the other projects that I haven't lined up. I think there's also, I'm constantly on the lookout for interesting tinkering or more fun ideas that I want to try to do. I think I have a lot of, so far I've talked a lot about shop infrastructure or shop wellness stuff, organization, sharpening, that sort of stuff. Getting into the flow, the process of how I want to try to work on stuff. And then furniture, that's sort of my my dream passion. I don't have any skill, and my existing woodcrafting skill is very limited, but I would love to try to get and make some handmade items and sort of have them on display and maybe have some for sale or maybe just some to share with people. But besides those two areas, another huge area that I'm wanting to invest some time in making videos for is just general interesting hacking, tinkering, engineering projects. And one thing I would love for this space in general, and it's sort of a combination of some of the stuff that we talked about, is a control panel of sorts for this room. And I'm thinking things like a master switch that would control outlets for like a safety precaution, so I could shut all the outlets off when I'm not in here, and ensure that, you know, my kid doesn't come in and accidentally like plug a saw in and turn it on. I've used some of the safety switches on power saws to make sure that he can't just flip the table saw on. But all that stuff is not ideal, and I have some smart home setup in my house already that I would love to try to incorporate into like more of a control panel where I can remotely enable, disable different outlets or different aspects and different tools. And then that will incorporate any dust collection I'm also able to get integrated, which is a whole nother topic that I haven't even mentioned. There's currently no central or really organized dust collection in here. I have a few ideas. I don't know. One thing that I didn't talk about is this building has a second story. It's really more of an attic. And there is some space up there. It's mostly extra storage for stuff that's rarely used. But I think there's definitely enough space to put a dust collector up there, and that way it doesn't take up space down here, and then I can run ducting to the various tools. It's a whole separate, you know, budgetary line item that I have to sort of figure out what the priority is. Right now it's just using a lot of opening garage doors, dust masks, sweeping, using a little hand vac to clean all the messes up. But having a dust collector would mean that I would want to try to integrate that into a control panel where I could remotely turn that on and let that kick on when the dust, when the machines are generating dust. Same with the air compressor I have. I would love it if I could get that sort of set in a more static spot and let there be just hose points that I can plug into, like a manifold here or there, or maybe just one of those mobile hose extension wheels. But yeah, I'm hoping that this control panel can just be a fun, novel, you know, add to my Star Trek aesthetic that I started with the sign, and, you know, do some wireless controlling of outlets, maybe have an Arduino, control some lighting in here, that sort of stuff. Um, and I think that would be a super fun project to try to work on. Kind of along the same lines as I have a whole bunch of Arduino radio pieces, and I'm wanting to build sort of like a radio controlled moisture sensor, maybe for the garden, and let me sort of do different various moisture controlled, temperature, that sort of stuff to try to tell me what the garden needs. But I've windbagged for a long time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. I hope people find this interesting. I hope this journey is fruitful. If nothing else, it's getting me out in here and working and talking to a camera. So thanks, and goodbye.